The nursery door was supposed to be locked. Kang Ji-Hoon made sure of it every night before retreating to his study, where he buried himself in ledgers and territory maps and anything that kept him from thinking about the two tiny lives sleeping 20 feet away from his bedroom. The lives that had cost him everything. So when he heard the crying at 3:17 a.m., not the sharp, demanding wails of infants, but the broken, muffled sobs of a woman trying desperately not to be heard, his hand went immediately to the gun in his desk drawer. Someone had breached his penthouse. Someone had made it past his security, past his armed guards, past every measure he'd put in place to keep the world away from what little remained of his shattered existence. And they were in the nursery. With his daughters. Ji-Hoon moved through the darkness like smoke, his footsteps silent on Italian marble, his breathing controlled despite the ice-cold fury flooding his veins. The Kang Syndicate didn't just command respect in Seoul's underworld. They owned it, controlled it, bled it dry when necessary. And anyone stupid enough to break into Kang Ji-Hoon's home, to threaten his children, would learn exactly why he'd earned the title, the Silent Blade. He reached the nursery door and found it ajar, soft yellow light spilling into the hallway from the nightlight shaped like a moon. The sobs were clearer now, ragged and raw, punctuated by whispered words he couldn't quite make out. Ji-Hoon pushed the door open slowly, gun raised, every muscle coiled tight and ready to kill. What he found stopped him cold. The new night nurse, Naomi, the American woman the agency had sent 3 weeks ago, the one with careful eyes and skin like polished mahogany, was sitting in the rocking chair with Jia cradled against her chest. His 6-month-old daughter, the smaller of the twins, the one who'd been fighting a fever for 2 days despite Dr. Kim's assurances it was nothing serious. Naomi was crying. Not the quiet, professional tears of someone doing a difficult job, but the kind of sobbing that came from somewhere deep and broken. The kind that spoke of old wounds torn open fresh. And she was singing. "Hush little baby, don't say a word." Her voice cracked on the lyrics, thick with tears, but she kept going. Kept rocking. Kept holding Jia with a tenderness that made something crack open in Ji-Hoon's chest. "Mama's gonna buy you a mockingbird." Jia's tiny fist was wrapped around Naomi's finger, and the baby, his baby who barely tolerated being held by anyone who screamed when the day nurses tried to soothe her, was quiet. Peaceful. Her fever-flushed cheeks pressed against Naomi's collarbone as if she belonged there. "And if that mockingbird don't sing." Naomi's voice broke completely. She pressed her face into Jia's soft black hair and sobbed. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, baby girl. I tried. I tried so hard, but I couldn't save you. I couldn't." Ji-Hoon lowered his gun. The movement must have made a sound because Naomi's head snapped up, her dark eyes going wide with terror when she saw him standing in the doorway. She stood so fast the rocking chair hit the wall, one arm cradling Jia protectively against her chest while the other moved as if to shield the baby from him. From him. As if he were the threat. "Mr. Kang." Her voice was hoarse, wrecked. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." She was crying and her fever spiked and I couldn't let her cry alone. "I know you said not to take them out of their cribs without permission, but she needed. You're holding my daughter." It wasn't an accusation. Ji-Hoon wasn't sure what it was. His voice sounded strange even to his own ears. I know I'm not supposed to." Naomi's tears were still falling, leaving wet tracks down her beautiful face. But she was so scared and alone and burning up and her voice cracked again. "Please don't fire me. I need this job. I know I overstepped, but she's okay now. Her temperature's down. She's sleeping. I was just going to hold her for a few more minutes and then put her back and you'd never have to know and—" "Who is she?" Naomi blinked. "What?" Ji-Hoon stepped into the nursery, closing the door behind him. The soft click made Naomi flinch, but she didn't move. Didn't back away. Just stood there holding his daughter like she was prepared to fight him for the right to keep her safe. Something about that, about this stranger's fierce protectiveness over a child she'd known for 3 weeks, made the ice around Ji-Hoon's heart crack just a little bit wider. "You were apologizing to someone." He kept his voice quiet, gentle even. The same tone he'd once used with Seo-Yun before everything went dark. "You said you couldn't save her. Who is she, Naomi?" The question broke something in her. Ji-Hoon watched her face crumple, watched her bite her lip hard enough to draw blood as she tried to hold back fresh sobs. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "Zara." Her name was Zara. She would have been 3 years old next month. Would have been. Past tense. Ji-Hoon's grip on his gun loosened completely. He set it on the changing table, then moved closer. Foley. The way you'd approach something wild and wounded. What happened to her? Leukemia. The word was a knife. Aggressive. We tried everything. Chemo, radiation, experimental trials. I sold everything I had. Worked 3 jobs. Begged doctors and strangers and God. But nothing. She looked down at Ja, her thumb stroking the baby's cheek with infinite gentleness. Nothing was enough. She died in my arms 6 months ago and I've been empty ever since. Just going through motions. Taking jobs and quitting them and trying to figure out how to keep breathing when your whole world is buried in a cemetery plot you visit every Sunday. The rawness of it, the absolute devastation in every word, hit Ji-Hoon like a physical blow. He knew that kind of grief. Knew it intimately. Had been drowning in it for 6 months himself, ever since Seo-Yun's funeral, since the moment he'd looked at the 2 tiny lives his wife had traded her own for and felt nothing but rage and guilt and a hollow emptiness where his heart used to be. You shouldn't be here, he said quietly. Naomi's arms tightened around you. I know. I'm sorry. I'll go. Just let me put her down first. Please. That's not what I meant. Ji-Hoon reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he brushed a tear from her cheek with his thumb. The touch was feather-light, almost reverent. You're grieving. You lost your daughter 6 months ago and you're working night shifts caring for someone else's children. That's not healthy, Naomi. That's torture. It's all I know how to do. Her eyes met his and the pain in them was so familiar it made his chest ache. Before Zara got sick, I was a pediatric nurse. It's who I am, who I was. Taking care of children. Keeping them safe. After she died, I couldn't go back to the hospital. Couldn't stand seeing all those other kids, other mothers who still had their babies. So I took private nursing positions. Night shifts mostly so I wouldn't have to think or feel or do anything but survive. And my daughters? Are beautiful. Naomi looked down at Ja and something soft and broken flickered across her features. They're so beautiful, Mr. Kang. And so loved even if you can't see it right now. Even if looking at them hurts too much to bear. The accuracy of her observation, the way she'd seen straight through to the guilt and grief he tried so hard to bury, should have made him angry. Should have made him retreat behind the cold mask he wore for everyone else. Instead it made him honest. I can't look at them without seeing her, he admitted. His voice was rough, unfamiliar with vulnerability. Without remembering that she died bringing them into this world. That I have them because she's gone. And I don't know if I'll ever be able to separate those 2 truths. I know. Naomi shifted just slightly, and the baby made a small sound of contentment. But they need you anyway. They need their father, not just nurses and nannies and staff members who keep them alive but can't love them the way they deserve. I don't know if I can. You can. She said it with such certainty. Because you're here, aren't you? At 3 a.m. with a gun ready to kill anyone who might hurt them. That's love, Mr. Kang. Even if it doesn't feel like it yet. Ji-Hoon stared at her. This stranger who'd somehow seen past every defense, every wall, straight down to the terrified father hiding beneath the crime lord's ruthless exterior. She should have been afraid of him. Everyone else was. But Naomi just stood there holding his daughter and looking at him with understanding instead of fear. Why are you really crying? He asked softly. It's not just about your daughter, is it? Naomi's breath hitched. Jia's fever broke an hour ago. I got it down with a cool bath and medicine, and she finally stopped crying and fell asleep in my arms. And for just a second, just one perfect second, I forgot. I forgot she wasn't mine. I forgot that Zara was gone. I let myself pretend that this was my baby, that I'd saved her, that everything was okay. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. And then I remembered. And it broke me all over again. The honesty of it, the raw, unfiltered pain, struck something deep in Ji-Hoon's chest. Here was someone who understood. Someone who knew what it felt like to love something so much it destroyed you when it was gone. He moved closer until he could smell the lavender baby soap on Jia's skin, until he could see the way his daughter's tiny fingers curled trustingly into Naomi's shirt. Let me hold her, he said quietly. Naomi's eyes widened. Mr. Kang. Please. The word felt foreign in his mouth. Kang Ji-Hoon didn't beg. Didn't ask. He commanded and people obeyed. But this woman, this broken, beautiful stranger who'd somehow found her way into his locked nursery and straight through every defense he'd built, deserved more than commands. I need to hold my daughter. Slowly, carefully, Naomi transferred Jia into his arms. The baby stirred but didn't wake, just curled against his chest with a soft sigh that made Ji-Hoon's breath catch. He was so small. So perfect. 6 months old, and she barely knew him, barely recognized his voice because he'd spent half a year avoiding her, hiding from her, running from the reminder that she existed because Seo-yeon didn't. I'm sorry, he whispered against Jia's hair. The apology wasn't for Naomi. It was for his daughter. For Ji-woo sleeping in the other crib. For Seo-yeon who'd trusted him to love these babies and he'd failed her. I'm so sorry, little one. When he looked up, Naomi was watching him with something like hope in her eyes. You're going to be okay, she said softly. All 3 of you. It doesn't feel like it now, but you will be. Ji-Hoon didn't know if he believed her. But standing in this nursery at 3 a.m. holding his daughter while a woman who understood his grief stood witness, it felt like the first step toward something. Toward healing. Toward the possibility that maybe, just maybe, he could learn to live again. Stay, he said. Not a command. A request. Don't leave at the end of your shift. Stay here. With them. With. He trailed off, unsure how to finish that sentence. But Naomi seemed to understand anyway. Okay, she whispered. I'll stay. To understand how Naomi Wells ended up in Kang Ji-Hoon's penthouse nursery at 3 a.m., crying over a child that wasn't hers, you have to go back 6 months. Back to the day she buried her 3-year-old daughter in a cemetery in Atlanta, Georgia, and decided that the only way to survive her grief was to run from everything that reminded her of it. Back to the moment she quit her job at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, sold everything she owned, and booked a one-way ticket to Seoul, South Korea, because it was far enough away that maybe, just maybe, she could escape the ghost of her daughter's laughter. Naomi had been a pediatric oncology nurse for 5 years. She'd held the hands of dying children and grieving parents. She'd celebrated remissions and mourned relapses. She'd thought she understood suffering, understood loss. Then Zara got sick. Her beautiful, bright, perfect daughter. The light of her world. The reason she got up every morning and believed in goodness and miracles and the possibility of happiness. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. Diagnosed at 2 years old. 18 months of hell disguised as hope. 18 months of watching her baby girl, her sweet Zara with her gap-toothed smile and obsession with butterflies, wither away despite every treatment, every prayer, every desperate bargain Naomi made with a God who stopped listening somewhere around month 6. Zara died on a Tuesday. Peacefully, the doctor said. As if there was anything peaceful about a 3-year-old's last breath. Naomi's ex-husband, Marcus, blamed her. Accused her of not fighting hard enough, not trying experimental treatments fast enough, not saving their daughter the way a good mother should. Never mind that Naomi had bankrupted herself trying. Never mind that she'd worked herself to exhaustion, slept in hospital chairs, begged specialists across the country. Never mind that she'd done everything except die in Zara's place, and God knows she'd wanted to. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks after the funeral. Marcus took what little money remained and moved to California with his new girlfriend. Left Naomi with medical debt, survivor's guilt, and a broken heart that felt like it would never heal. So she ran. Seoul was an accident. She'd been scrolling through international nursing job boards at 2 a.m., numb and desperate for any kind of escape, when she saw a posting for English-speaking pediatric nurses willing to work private cases. The pay was exceptional. The hours were flexible. And most importantly, it was 7,000 miles away from every memory that was killing her slowly from the inside. She'd been in Korea for 3 months when the agency sent her to interview for the Kang position. The client is very private, the agency coordinator had explained in careful English. Very wealthy. Very particular. He needs a night nurse for his twin daughters 6 months old. The previous nurses, they didn't work out. What the coordinator didn't mention was that Kang Ji-Hoon was one of the most powerful men in Seoul's underground. That his business ventures included everything from high-end real estate to less legal enterprises that the police pretended not to see. That his wife had died in childbirth and he'd spent the subsequent 6 months building walls so high around his heart that even his own children couldn't scale them. Naomi learned all of this from the house staff after she was hired. The penthouse was stunning. All floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's skyline, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than Naomi had made in her entire nursing career, and an atmosphere of quiet wealth that spoke of old money and older power. The staff was respectful but distant. The day nurses, both Korean women in their 50s, spoke minimal English and seemed to view Naomi with polite suspicion. The housekeeper, a stern woman named Mrs. Choi, gave her strict instructions. Care for the twins during night hours. Keep them quiet. Keep them fed. Keep them alive. Do not disturb Mr. Kang under any circumstances. He doesn't like to be reminded they exist, Mrs. Choi had said bluntly. It's better for everyone if you stay invisible. Naomi had nodded, understanding more than Mrs. Choi probably intended. She recognized grief when she saw it. Recognized the way it made people run from the things they loved most because loving hurt too much to bear. She'd been the same way for months after Zara died. Couldn't look at children without breaking down. Couldn't walk past a playground without crying. Couldn't exist in a world where her daughter didn't. But the twins Jia and Jiwoo, they were different. Maybe it was because they weren't hers. Maybe it was because grieving for Zara had left her so numb that caring for someone else's children felt like the only way to remember what it meant to love without the crushing weight of loss. Or maybe it was because when Naomi held Jia for the first time, the baby had looked up at her with dark eyes that held such trust, such innocent belief that she would be cared for, and something in Naomi's broken heart remembered how to beat. She fell in love with them immediately. Jiwoo, the older twin by 3 minutes, was bold and loud. She had a temper, that one. Would scream until her face turned red if her bottle wasn't warm enough or her diaper change took too long. But she also had the most beautiful smile, gummy and wide and absolutely radiant when Naomi sang to her. Pa was different. Quieter. More watchful. She studied everything with serious eyes, as if trying to understand a world that had taken her mother before she could remember her face. She was also more fragile, prone to fevers and upset stomachs and fits of crying that the day nurses couldn't soothe. But Naomi could. Naomi, who'd spent 18 months learning every trick to comfort a sick child. Who knew exactly how to hold a baby to ease discomfort. Who could tell the difference between normal fussiness and genuine distress. Within a week, both twins would calm the moment they heard her voice. Within 2 weeks, they'd reach for her when she entered the nursery. And somewhere in the 3rd week, Naomi realized she'd stopped thinking about dying every morning when she woke up. As for Kang Ji-Hoon himself, she'd barely seen him. He was a ghost in his own home. Would disappear into his study for days at a time. Would leave for business without explanation and return in the early hours of the morning smelling like expensive whiskey and expensive cologne and something darker she didn't want to examine too closely. The few times Naomi did see him, he looked like exhaustion personified. He was beautiful in the way dangerous things often were, all sharp angles and controlled power. Tall, lean, with the kind of face that belonged on magazine covers if it wasn't so cold. His dark hair was always perfectly styled. His suits were custom-tailored, Italian probably, in blacks and grays that made him look like living shadow. But his eyes, God, his eyes were what haunted her. Dark and bottomless and filled with so much grief it hurt to look at him directly. He moved through the penthouse like a man underwater. Present but not really there. Going through motions but feeling nothing. Naomi recognized it because she'd been the same way. The staff whispered about him. About how he'd changed after Seo-yeon died. How the man who'd once been known for his sharp mind and sharper tongue had become silent. How the criminal empire he'd built alongside his wife. Because yes, Seo-yeon had been his partner in every sense. The brilliant strategist to his cold execution. Was being run almost entirely by his second-in-command now. How he couldn't even look at his daughters without flinching. Mrs. Choi said it was because they reminded him of what he'd lost. Naomi thought it was because they reminded him of what he still had, and he didn't think he deserved it. He understood that too. For 3 weeks, Naomi kept her head down. Did her job. Cared for the twins with all the love her broken heart still had to give. Kept her grief private, her tears silent, her professional mask firmly in place. Until Jia's fever spiked at 2 a.m. and every maternal instinct Naomi had, the ones she'd thought died with Zara, roared to life. Until she found herself in that rocking chair holding a baby that wasn't hers, singing a lullaby her daughter used to love, breaking down completely because she couldn't save Zara but maybe, just maybe, she could save this little girl. Until Kang Ji-Hoon walked in with a gun and found her at her most vulnerable. Until everything changed. The morning after the 3 a.m. nursery incident, Naomi expected to be fired. She'd broken protocol. Taken Jia out of her crib without permission. Cried all over Mr. Kang's expensive cashmere baby blankets. Revealed herself to be exactly what she was. A grieving mother barely holding herself together. Definitely not the calm, professional nurse the agency had promised. She packed her single suitcase and waited for Mrs. Choi to deliver the inevitable dismissal. Instead, at 8 a.m. there was a knock on her door. Naomi opened it to find Kang Ji-Hoon standing in the hallway of the staff wing, looking impossibly elegant in charcoal slacks and a white dress shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows. The morning light from the hallway windows caught the edges of a tattoo she could just barely see peeking from his collar. Delicate Korean characters that looked like names or dates or promises. Mr. Kang. She straightened immediately, trying to look professional despite wearing yesterday's scrubs and having slept maybe 2 hours. I was just about to have breakfast with me. She blinked. I'm sorry. Breakfast. He said it like it was perfectly normal for Seoul's most feared crime lord to invite his night nurse to a meal. I don't eat alone anymore. Doctor's orders. Something about isolation being bad for mental health. The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. So you're going to have breakfast with me. And we're going to talk about last night. It wasn't a request. 10 minutes later, Naomi found herself sitting at a dining table that could have seated 20 people, staring at enough food to feed an army. Korean breakfast, rice, soup, banchan, grilled fish, alongside Western options. Eggs, toast, fruit, coffee that smelled divine. Kang Ji-Hoon sat across from her, methodically preparing his rice and soup with the same precision he probably applied to everything else in his life. How's Jia? Naomi asked because the silence was unbearable and she needed to know. Fever's gone. She's been sleeping peacefully since you put her down at 4 a.m. His dark eyes found hers. The day nurses said she's never slept that well before. That she usually wakes up screaming every few hours. She just needed to feel safe. And you make her feel safe. It wasn't a question, but Naomi answered anyway. I try. Babies can sense when someone cares about them. When someone isn't just going through motions but actually. She trailed off, unsure how to explain it. Loves them, Ji-Hoon finished quietly. Even when they're not yours to love. The accuracy of it made Naomi's chest tight. Yes. He set down his chopsticks and studied her with an intensity that made her feel exposed. Tell me about Zara. The name on his lips, spoken with careful Korean pronunciation with gentleness instead of pity, nearly broke her all over again. You don't want to hear about my dead daughter over breakfast, Mr. Kang. I do. He leaned back in his chair, all controlled elegance and patient attention. I want to know everything. What she looked like. What she loved. How she died. Why you're here in Seoul instead of home where people who love you could help you grieve. There's no one left who loves me. The words came out flat. Honest. My ex-husband blamed me for her death. My parents died when I was young. I have a sister in Boston but we haven't spoken in years. After Zara. She took a shaky breath. After Zara I had nothing. So I ran. To Korea. To anywhere that wasn't Atlanta. Wasn't the hospital where she died. Wasn't the apartment where her bedroom still has butterfly stickers on the walls because I couldn't bear to take them down before I left. Naomi's voice cracked. I needed to disappear. Needed to stop being Zara's mother and just be nobody. Ji-Hoon was quiet for a long moment. Then, you could never be nobody, Naomi. Not when you love the way you do. The observation was so unexpected, so tender, that Naomi had to look away before she started crying again. What about you? She asked, desperate to shift focus. Why can't you look at your daughters without seeing your wife? She expected him to shut down. To retreat behind the cold mask every staff member had warned her about. Instead he surprised her. Because Seo-Yun was my everything, he said simply. My wife. My partner. The only person who ever looked at what I am, what I do and didn't flinch. We built this life together. This empire. She was brilliant, ruthless when she needed to be, but so full of light. His jaw clenched. We didn't plan for children. Didn't think it was safe in our world. But then she got pregnant and she wanted them so badly. Wanted to give them the family neither of us had growing up. And the pregnancy? High risk from the start. Twins, complications, her blood pressure through the roof. The doctors warned us. Said she should terminate. That carrying to term might kill her. Ji-Hoon's hands tightened on the table's edge. She refused. Said these babies were ours, that they deserved their chance at life. I begged her to reconsider. Told her I'd rather have her than children we'd barely even met. But Seo-yeon was. He stopped, his voice rough. Stubborn. Brave. Stupid. She loved them, Naomi said softly. Before they were even born, she loved them more than herself. Yes. Ji-Hoon met her eyes, and the pain in them was devastating. And it killed her. The twins were born healthy. Perfect. And Seo-yeon hemorrhaged. I held her hand while she died and promised her I'd take care of them. That I'd love them the way she would have. That they'd know their mother through me. But you can't keep that promise. No. The admission seemed to cost him. Every time I look at them, all I see is the trade. Their lives for hers. And I know it's not their fault. I know they didn't ask to be born, didn't ask for their mother to die bringing them into this world. But knowing that doesn't make it easier to hold them. Doesn't make it easier to love them when loving them feels like betraying her memory. Naomi reached across the table, covering his hand with hers before she could second-guess the impulse. She wouldn't want this. Seo-yeon. She wouldn't want you to torture yourself. Wouldn't want her daughters to grow up without their father because you're drowning in guilt. You didn't know her. I know mothers. Naomi's grip tightened. I know that we'd do anything, endure anything, sacrifice anything, to give our children a chance at life. Your wife made that choice knowing the risks. Made it because she loved you and loved them and wanted you all to have a future together, even if she couldn't be part of it. How am I supposed to give them a future when I can barely survive the present? You start small. Naomi's thumb traced over his knuckles, the touch gentle and grounding. You hold them for 5 minutes a day. Then 10. Then 20. You let yourself feel the grief without drowning in it. You let other people help you. People who understand what it means to lose everything and still have to keep breathing. People like you. People like me, she agreed. They sat in silence, hands still touching across the expensive table, two broken people recognizing something familiar in each other's wounds. Finally, Ji-Hoon spoke. The agency said your contract is for 3 months. Night shifts only. Yes. I want to change it. His dark eyes were intense, determined. I want you here full-time. Living in the penthouse. Caring for the twins during the day and night. He hesitated. Being the presence they need. The mother figure I can't give them yet. Naomi's heart clenched. Mr. Kang. Ji-Hoon. He said it quietly. If you're going to help me learn to be a father, you should probably call me by my name. Ji-Hoon, she tested. The syllables felt strange on her tongue, intimate. I'm not trying to replace their mother. I could never. I know. He turned his hand over, palm up, fingers lacing through hers. But right now, they need someone who can love them without the weight of grief making it impossible. And I think. He paused, vulnerable in a way she suspected he rarely allowed himself to be. I think you need them too. Need a reason to keep going. Need children to care for so you can remember what it felt like to be Zara's mother without the pain destroying you. He was right. God help her, he was absolutely right. Okay, Naomi whispered. I'll stay. The relief in Ji-Hoon's expression was palpable. Thank you. On one condition. His eyebrow raised. Which is? You have breakfast with me every morning. And dinner every night. And you spend at least 1 hour a day with your daughters. She held his gaze, unflinching. You don't get to hide anymore, Ji-Hoon. If I'm going to help you heal, you have to actually try. Something flickered in his eyes. Respect maybe. Or the first fragile shoots of hope. Deal, he said. And just like that, everything changed. The first week of Naomi's new arrangement was awkward in ways that had nothing to do with language barriers or cultural differences and everything to do with two grieving people trying to figure out how to coexist in a space defined by loss. Ji-Hoon kept his promise. Every morning at 7 a.m. sharp, he appeared in the dining room for breakfast. Every evening at 6 p.m. dinner. And for 1 hour each day, usually late afternoon before his business took him away, he'd sit in the nursery while Naomi went about her duties, forcing himself to be present with his daughters. At first he just watched. Sat in the corner armchair with his jaw clenched and his hands fisted on his knees, watching Naomi change diapers and prepare bottles and sing silly songs that made the twins giggle. But gradually, slowly he started participating. It began with Ji-woo. The bolder twin, the one who didn't understand the concept of strangers or fear, had crawled over to Ji-Hoon during one of his observation sessions and pulled herself up using his pant leg. Just stood there wobbling on unsteady baby legs, grinning up at him with that gummy smile that could melt glaciers. Naomi had watched Ji-Hoon's face transform. Watched the ice crack just a little as he reached down with trembling hands and picked up his daughter for the first time in months. Ji-woo had grabbed his nose, laughed, patted his cheeks with her tiny hands like she was trying to memorize him through touch. And Ji-Hoon had broken. Not visibly, not dramatically, but Naomi saw the single tear that escaped down his cheek before he buried his face in Ji-woo's soft hair, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. She'd left them alone for that. Given him privacy to grieve and bond and begin the slow process of accepting that he could love his daughters and miss his wife simultaneously. That those two truths didn't cancel each other out. After that, things shifted. Ji-Hoon started coming to the nursery even when it wasn't his designated hour. Would sit with Naomi during late-night feedings, learning how to hold the bottles at the right angle, how to burp the twins, how to soothe them when they fussed. He was surprisingly gentle. His hands that Naomi knew had done terrible things in service of his empire, were infinitely careful with his daughters. Reverend even. Seo-yeon would have been better at this, he said one night, cradling Ja while Naomi fed Ji-woo. She always wanted to be a mother. Talked about it sometimes late at night when she thought I was asleep. About what our children would look like. Whether they'd have her stubborn streak or my tendency to overthink everything. They have both, Naomi said with a small smile. Ji-woo is definitely stubborn. Ja overthinks. You can see it in her face when she's trying to figure something out. Ji-Hoon looked down at the baby in his arms, really looked at her. She has Seo-yeon's eyes. Did you know that? Same shape. Same intensity. And your nose, Naomi observed. Both of them. Very dignified. Very Korean aristocracy. He huffed a sound that might have been a laugh. Korean aristocracy. Is that what the staff told you I am? Among other things. She raised an eyebrow. Though I've learned it's better not to ask too many questions about what exactly you do for a living. Probably wise. They fell into comfortable silence, broken only by the soft sounds of babies drinking and the city humming 40 floors below. Can I ask you something? Naomi said finally. You can ask. I may not answer. Fair enough. She adjusted Ji-woo against her shoulder, patting the baby's back gently. The tattoo on your collarbone. The Korean characters. What do they say? Ji-Hoon stilled. For a moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he shifted Jia to one arm and pulled aside his collar, revealing the delicate black script more fully. Seo-yeon's name, he said quietly. And the twins' names. And a date, the day we met. She had one that matched. My name. Same date. His jaw clenched. It's all I have left of her now. Ink and memories. The rawness in his voice made Naomi's chest ache. Tell me about her. About how you met. You sure you want to hear a love story? Might be depressing given how it ended. I want to hear anyway. Ji-Hoon was quiet for a long moment, his thumb absently stroking Jia's cheek as he gathered his thoughts. I was 23, he finally said. Newly in charge of the Kang Syndicate after my father died. Young, angry, determined to prove I was more than just an inheritance. I was expanding territory, making enemies, generally being the kind of reckless that gets people killed in this business. Sounds dangerous. It was. And Seo-yeon was working for one of those enemies. Chief Financial Officer for the Choi organization. Brilliant with numbers, could find patterns in data that would take others months to spot. The choice used her to track money, identify opportunities, bury evidence. He smiled faintly. I was supposed to eliminate her. She knew too much. Was too valuable to the competition. But you didn't. I tried. His expression turned rueful. Cornered her in her apartment, gun drawn, ready to solve the problem efficiently. And you know what she did? What? Offered me a job. Ji-Hoon shook his head. Stood there, completely fearless, and told me that if I was smart, I'd realize she was worth more alive than dead. That she could double my profits in 6 months if I gave her access to my books. That the choice were idiots who couldn't see her potential, and I'd be an idiot too if I pulled that trigger. Naomi couldn't help but smile. Bold. Insane, Ji-Hoon corrected. But also right. I hired her. She proved her worth within a month. Within 3 months I was in love with her. Within 6 months we were married. His voice softened. She understood me in a way no one else ever had. Understood that I wasn't a monster, just a man trying to survive in a monstrous world. He made me better. Made me want to be better. She sounds incredible. She was. He looked down at Jia, his expression filled with longing. And I failed her. Let her die because I was too selfish to lose her, even if it meant losing her anyway. Ji-Hoon, you didn't fail her. She made a choice. A choice I should have fought harder against. Naomi set down Ji-Woo's bottle and reached across the small space between their chairs, touching his arm. You can spend the rest of your life torturing yourself with what-ifs. Or you can honor her memory by loving the children she died to give you. By being the father she believed you could be. His eyes met hers, dark and wounded and searching for something he didn't know how to name. How do you do it? He asked. How do you keep going after losing everything? How do you wake up every morning and choose to live when the person who made life worth living is gone? The question hit her like a physical blow. Because she'd been asking herself the same thing for 6 months. Honestly. Naomi's voice was barely a whisper. I don't know if I am living. Not really. I'm just existing. Going through motions. Finding small things to care about, like your daughters, because if I don't, the grief will swallow me whole. That's not living. No, she agreed. But it's surviving. And some days that's enough. Ji-Hoon studied her for a long moment. Then with his free hand he reached over and took hers. Laced their fingers together in a gesture that felt more intimate than it probably should. What if we tried to do more than survive? He said quietly. What if we tried to actually live? Together. For them. He nodded at the twins. For each other. I don't know if I remember how. Neither do I. His grip tightened. But maybe that's okay. Maybe we can learn together. Naomi looked at their joined hands. At this beautiful broken man who'd somehow found his way into her carefully guarded heart. At the 2 perfect babies who needed them both. Okay, she whispered. Let's try. The shift was subtle at first. Ji-Hoon started staying for 2 hours in the nursery instead of 1. Then 3. Then he'd be there most of the afternoon, handling business calls in Korean while Ji-Woo napped on his chest and Jia played with the sensory toys Naomi had ordered. He started asking questions. Not just about the twins' routines but about Naomi herself. What she liked to eat. Whether she missed America. What Zara's favorite color had been. Whether Naomi had always wanted to be a nurse or if there had been other dreams. And Naomi found herself answering. Found herself sharing pieces of her past she'd kept locked away since Zara's death. Found herself laughing. Actually laughing. For the first time in 6 months when Ji-Hoon made a dry observation about Ji-Woo's tyrannical tendencies. She's going to run your empire someday, Naomi said, watching the baby girl imperiously demand more pureed sweet potato. Look at her. Already knows exactly what she wants and won't settle for less. Seo-yeon was like that, Ji-Hoon said, his voice fond instead of pained. Progress. Could walk into a room full of men twice her age and have them eating out of her hand within minutes. She'd have loved seeing that fire in Ji-Woo. What about Jia? Naomi asked, stroking the quieter twins' hair as she dozed in her arms. What would Seo-yeon have said about her? Ji-Hoon studied his younger daughter with an expression Naomi had never seen before. Soft. Tender. Absolutely besotted. That she's the dangerous one, he said quietly. The one who watches and learns and waits for the perfect moment to strike. Seo-yeon was like that too underneath the charisma. Could be patient for years if it meant winning in the end. Strategic. Exactly. He reached over, his finger tracing Jia's tiny hand. The baby's fingers curled around his automatically, holding tight even in sleep. She's going to be brilliant. Terrifying but brilliant. They both are, Naomi said. They have good genes. Mother who was a genius strategist. Father who's... She paused, realizing she'd never actually asked what Ji-Hoon did beyond the vague business. A criminal, he finished dryly. You can say it. I won't be offended. I was going to say intelligent and observant and clearly good at whatever it is you do. What I do is run an organization that operates in the gray spaces between legal and illegal. Real estate development funded by less legitimate ventures. Protection services that look a lot like extortion if you squint. Import-export businesses that sometimes import and export things customs would frown upon. He said it matter-of-factly, watching her face for judgment. I'm not a good man, Naomi. I've done things that would horrify you if you knew the details. Everyone's done things they're not proud of. Not like this. His jaw clenched. I've killed people. Ordered deaths. Made people disappear when they became problems. I'm trying to clean up the operation, make things more legitimate for the twins' sake, but the foundation is built on blood and violence. Naomi should have been afraid. Should have packed her bags and run from this admission. Instead, she found herself asking, have you ever hurt anyone who didn't deserve it? The question seemed to catch him off guard. What? The people you killed or had killed. Did they deserve it? Were they threats? People who'd hurt others first. Yes, he said slowly. I'm not indiscriminate. I don't hurt innocents. But that doesn't make it right. No, Naomi agreed. But it makes you different from the monsters. Monsters don't care about right and wrong. Don't struggle with guilt. Don't try to be better for their children. She held his gaze. You're not a monster, Ji-Hoon. You're just a man who's had to make impossible choices to survive. You sound very certain. I am. She shifted just slightly, the baby making a small sound of contentment. Because a monster wouldn't spend every evening learning to change diapers. Wouldn't stay up until 3 a.m. helping me with feedings. Wouldn't look at his daughters like they're the most precious things in the world even though seeing them hurts. Ji-Hoon was quiet for a long moment. Then, you see too much. Or maybe you hide less than you think. His lips quirked. Almost a smile. Dangerous observation. I'll risk it. Something shifted in his expression. Something heated and aware that made Naomi's breath catch. For the first time since they'd met, he was looking at her not as his employee or his daughter's caretaker, but as a woman. A woman he was interested in. Naomi, he said quietly. I need to be very clear about something. Her heart started racing. Okay. I'm attracted to you. The admission was blunt, honest. Have been since that first night. Since I found you crying in the nursery holding my daughter like she was yours. Since I realized you understood grief the way I do. That you see past the reputation and the violence to the man underneath. He paused. But I won't act on it. Won't cross that line. Because you work for me and you're vulnerable and the power dynamic is too uneven. Naomi's chest felt tight. What if I want you to cross that line? Do you? His dark eyes searched hers. Or do you just want to feel something other than grief? Want to use physical intimacy to forget for a while that your daughter is dead and mine might as well be for how absent I've been? The brutal honesty of it stole her breath. Because he was right. At least partially. She did want to feel something other than constant pain. Did want to remember what it felt like to be wanted, desired, cared for as more than just a pair of hands to care for children. But it was more than that too. I'm attracted to you as well, she said quietly. And yes, part of that is probably grief and loneliness and the intimacy of sharing this space. But part of it is also just you. The way you're trying so hard to be better. The way you look at your daughters. The way you talk about Seo-Yun with love instead of resentment even though she left you alone. The way you see me, really see me instead of just the mask I wear for everyone else. Ji-Hoon's hands clenched on the arms of his chair. Naomi. I'm not asking you to do anything about it, she interrupted. I know the timing is terrible. I know we're both disasters emotionally. I know I'm your employee and you're my boss and there are 1,000 reasons this would be complicated. She took a breath. I just needed you to know that you're not alone in feeling this. The silence that followed was heavy with things unsaid. With want and restraint and the terrible awareness of how easy it would be to give in. Finally, Ji-Hoon spoke. What if we table this conversation for now? Not forever. Just until we're both in a better place emotionally. Until I can be sure I'm not taking advantage of your grief or you of mine. And then we revisit it. His gaze was intense, promising. Because I meant what I said earlier. I want to try living again. And I hope, that might mean building something with you. If you want that. I do, Naomi whispered. Then we have something to look forward to. He stood, carefully extracting his finger from Jia's grip. I have a meeting. I'll be back by dinner. Ji-Hoon. She stopped him at the door. Thank you. For being honest. For respecting the complexity of this. He looked back at her and the softness in his expression made her heart ache. Thank you for making me want to be the kind of man worthy of that respect. After he left, Naomi sat in the nursery holding Jia and thinking about possibility. About the future. About the fact that for the first time since Zara died, she could imagine wanting something beyond just making it through each day. She could imagine wanting him. The cultural differences revealed themselves in small moments. Like when Naomi tried to give Jia medicine and Ji-Hoon gently corrected her technique, explaining the Korean method his mother had used. Or when she served dinner Western style and he quietly rearranged everything according to Korean table customs, teaching her the proper way to place chopsticks and bowls. I'm sorry, Naomi said after the third time she got something wrong. I should have researched Korean culture more before taking this job. Why? Ji-Hoon looked genuinely confused. You're American. I don't expect you to know our customs. But I'm living in your home. Caring for your Korean daughters. I should understand their heritage. Something warm flickered in his eyes. You want to learn? Of course. Then I'll teach you. He smiled. Actually smiled. The expression transformed his face, made him look younger, less burdened. Fair warning, I'm a strict teacher. I expect perfection. I can handle strict, Naomi shot back. I worked in pediatric oncology. Try telling a 5-year-old they can't have ice cream before chemo. That's strict. He laughed. The sound was rusty, unpracticed but genuine. Point taken. The lessons started that evening. Ji-Hoon taught her basic Korean phrases. How to say hello, goodbye, thank you. How to count to 10. How to say, I love you in the formal and informal ways. Thurry, he said, the syllables flowing smooth and beautiful from his tongue. Sarangi. That's informal. What you'd say to family, to someone you're very close to. Thurne, Naomi repeated, stumbling over the pronunciation. Not bad. He moved closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Something expensive and subtle, cedar and bergamot. But your tongue placement is wrong. Here. His fingers touched her chin, gentle and precise. Relax your jaw. It comes from further back in your throat. She tried again. Better this time. Good. His thumb brushed her lower lip, ostensibly to demonstrate the next sound, but the touch lingered longer than necessary. Now the rang. Roll the r slightly. Like this, Raren. Naomi's heart was pounding. They were standing too close. His hand was still on her face. And the way he was looking at her, like she was something precious, something he wanted but was forcing himself not to take, made heat pool in her stomach. Ji-Hoon, she whispered. I know. His voice was rough. I'm going to step back now. Before I do something we agreed to wait on. He did, creating distance between them. But the awareness remained. The want. The knowledge that they were both barely holding back. The lessons continued over the following weeks. Korean language, customs, food. Ji-Hoon taught her how to make kimchi jjigae, laughing when she cried from the spice. Taught her about Korean holidays and traditions. About the importance of family hierarchy and respect for elders. When the twins are older, he said one evening while they prepared dinner together, I want them to understand both sides of their heritage. Seo-Yun's family. My family. The traditions that shaped us. But also, he paused, measuring his next words carefully. Also your influence. The American perspective. The gentleness you bring. The different ways of showing love. I'm not their mother, Ji-Hoon. No. He turned to face her fully. But you're becoming essential to them. To me. And I want them to know that family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up. Who stays. Who loves you even when it's hard. The implication hung between them, heavy with meaning. Are you saying? The door to the penthouse exploded open. Men poured in, armed, masked, moving with military precision. Ji-Hoon reacted instantly, shoving Naomi behind him, his hand already reaching for the gun she now knew he kept in multiple locations throughout the apartment. Stay down, he barked in English, then switched to rapid Korean, shouting what sounded like orders or warnings. Gunfire erupted. Naomi screamed, dropping to the floor as Ji-Hoon returned fire, taking down 2 intruders before more flooded in. There were too many. Way too many. And they weren't going for Ji-Hoon. They were heading for the nursery. The twins. Naomi's scream cut through the chaos. She tried to run, tried to get to the babies, but Ji-Hoon grabbed her, physically holding her back even as he fired at the men advancing down the hallway. No. You'll get yourself killed. I don't care. They're going for the babies. More gunfire. Shouting in Korean. The sound of the nursery door being kicked open. And then the twins started crying. Screaming. The terrified wails of babies who didn't understand why their world had suddenly become violent and loud. Ji-Hoon's face transformed into something Naomi had never seen before. Something cold and lethal and absolutely terrifying. Get to the panic room, he said, his voice deadly calm. Now. I'm not leaving them. You're going to the panic room and you're going to call my security team and you're going to stay alive because if something happens to you, I will burn this entire city to the ground. He shoved a phone into her hands. Go. No. I'll get the twins. Before she could argue, he was moving. Firing with precision that spoke of years of practice. Taking down intruders with cold efficiency. Advancing toward the nursery like death itself. Naomi ran for the panic room, a hidden space behind a bookshelf in Ji-Hoon's study that she'd been shown during her first week. Made the call with shaking hands. Gave the security team the code phrase Ji-Hoon had made her memorize. And then she waited. Listening to gunfire and screaming and her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. 2 minutes felt like 2 hours. Finally, the bookshelf moved. Ji-Hoon appeared, blood on his face, his shirt torn but alive. And in his arms, wrapped in blankets and crying but clearly unharmed, were Ji-Ah and Ji-Woo. Oh, thank God. Naomi reached for the babies, checking them frantically for injuries. Are they hurt? Are they? They're fine. Terrified but fine. Ji-Hoon's voice was hoarse. The men didn't get to them. I made sure of it. Sirens wailed in the distance. The sounds of fighting had stopped. Ji-Hoon's security team must have arrived. What was that? Naomi demanded, still checking the twins for any sign of harm. Who are they? Why? They were after the twins. Ji-Hoon's jaw was tight. Specifically after them. This wasn't a robbery or a random attack. Someone sent those men to take my daughters. The implications hit Naomi like a freight train. Who would? I don't know yet. His eyes were black with fury. But I'm going to find out. And when I do, I'm going to make them regret ever thinking they could touch what's mine. The penthouse was a war zone. 4 bodies in the living room. 2 in the hallway. 3 more in various states of injury being restrained by Ji-Hoon's security team. Men in dark suits who'd appeared within minutes of Naomi's call. She sat in the panic room with the twins, trying to calm them while Ji-Hoon dealt with the aftermath. Through the partially open door, she could hear him speaking in rapid, furious Korean. Could hear the sound of someone being hit, then someone screaming. Interrogation. He was interrogating the survivors. Naomi should have been horrified. Should have grabbed the babies and run. But all she felt was a cold, fierce protectiveness that matched Ji-Hoon's fury. Someone had tried to take these children. Had violated their home. Had put innocent babies in danger. She wanted them to suffer for it. 20 minutes later, Ji-Hoon appeared in the panic room doorway. His knuckles were bloody. His expression was carved from ice. Pack a bag, he said quietly. Enough for a few days. We're leaving. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. Somewhere no one knows about. He crouched down, his voice softening as he addressed the twins. Jia had stopped crying but was clinging to Naomi like a lifeline. Ji-Woo was asleep, exhausted from terror. I'm sorry, little ones. I'm so sorry you had to be afraid. Ji-Hoon, what's happening? Naomi kept her voice calm despite the fear racing through her veins. Who sent those men? Park Min-jae. The name came out like poison. Old rival. Thought he'd been neutralized years ago. But apparently he's been biding his time. Building resources. Waiting for the perfect moment to strike at me. And that moment was now. Why? Ji-Hoon's eyes met hers. Because he knows the twins are my weakness. And recently, very recently, he found out about you. About how much you mean to them. To me. The implications settled like lead in Naomi's stomach. This is my fault. No. His hand cupped her face, fierce and possessive. This is Park's fault. And he's going to pay for it with everything he has. But first I need to get you and the twins somewhere he can't reach you. What about you? I'll be handling Park. His smile was cold enough to freeze blood. Permanently. Within an hour they were in an armored SUV heading out of Seoul. Naomi had never been in a vehicle like this. Bulletproof glass, reinforced doors, a driver who was clearly more soldier than chauffeur. Ji-Hoon sat beside her, one hand on his phone, the other resting on Jia's car seat. He was making calls. Giving orders in Korean. Each word clipped and precise and absolutely lethal. How did you find out it was Park? Naomi asked during a break in his calls. One of the men I interrogated talked. Ji-Hoon's voice was matter-of-fact. After persuasion. Confirmed that Park hired them. Gave them floor plans of the penthouse. Told them the twins were the priority. Take them alive, use them as leverage against me. Leverage for what? To force me to give up territory. Business interests. Everything I've built. His jaw clenched. Park's been in hiding since Seo-yeon and I destroyed his operation 5 years ago. Cost him millions. Made him a laughingstock. He's been planning revenge ever since. And he chose now because I'm vulnerable. Ji-Hoon's hand tightened on the car seat. Because I lost my wife and nearly lost myself. Because my organization has been running on autopilot while I grieved. Because he thought I was weak enough to break if he took the last things I have left to love. Are you? Naomi asked quietly. Weak enough to break? His eyes met hers. Dark and dangerous and absolutely certain. No. Not anymore. Not since you. The admission hung between them, raw and honest. Where are we going? She asked. Safe house. 2 hours outside Seoul. Off the books. Only 3 people know it exists and all of them would die before betraying me. He glanced at the twins, both finally sleeping after their trauma. You'll be safe there while I handle Park. I want to come with you. Absolutely not. Ji-Hoon. No. His voice was firm. Final. You stay with the twins. Keep them safe. That's how you help me. Because I can't think straight if I'm worried about you. Can't do what needs to be done if there's even a chance Park might get to you. Naomi understood the logic. Hated it but understood it. Promise me you'll come back, she whispered. I promise. He leaned over, his forehead touching hers briefly. Intimately. I'm not leaving you. Not now. Not ever. The safe house was beautiful. A traditional Korean home in the mountains, surrounded by forest and silence. Modern security hidden behind old-world aesthetics. Guards posted at every entrance, invisible but present. Ji-Hoon carried both twins inside, showing Naomi where everything was. Bedrooms. Kitchen. The nursery he'd had installed months ago, just in case. Emergency exits. The panic room in the basement. How long have you had this place? Naomi asked, looking around at the lived-in details. Photos on the walls. Books on the shelves. It wasn't just a safe house. It was a home. Since before the twins were born. Ji-Hoon set down the car seats, then turned to face her. Seo-yeon and I bought it. Thought maybe we could raise our family here. Away from the city. Away from the violence. Somewhere they could just be children instead of crime lords' daughters. It's perfect. It was supposed to be our future. His voice was rough. Now it's just a hiding place. Or, Naomi said carefully, it could still be a future. Different than you planned but still possible. He looked at her for a long moment. Then crossed the distance between them and kissed her. It wasn't gentle. Wasn't careful or restrained. It was desperate and hungry and full of all the want they'd been holding back for weeks. His hands framed her face, tilting her head to deepen the kiss. And Naomi melted into him, her fingers curling into his shirt, anchoring herself to this moment, this man, this impossible connection. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Ji-Hoon rested his forehead against hers. I'm sorry, he said. I shouldn't have. We agreed to wait. I'm not sorry. Naomi's hands moved to his chest, feeling his heartbeat racing under her palms. I wanted that. Why'd you want this, whatever this is becoming? Naomi. I know the timing is terrible. I know you need to go handle Park. I know we're both still grieving and broken and probably not ready for this. She held his gaze. But I also know that life is short and unpredictable and sometimes you don't get second chances. And I don't want to waste whatever time we might have being careful when we could be living. Ji-Hoon's thumb traced her cheekbone. You're sure? I'm sure. He kissed her again. Softer this time. Sweet and full of promise. When I come back, he murmured against her lips, we're going to have a very long conversation about what this means. About what we want. About how we build something real from all this broken. I'm looking forward to it. One of the twins made a fussy sound, demanding attention even in sleep. They broke apart, both smiling at the interruption. Take care of them, Ji-Hoon said, moving to gather his things. Take care of yourself. I'll have someone deliver everything you need by morning. Food, supplies, whatever. How long will you be gone? 2 days. Maybe 3. His expression hardened. Long enough to make sure Park never threatens my family again. Family. The word settled into Naomi's chest, warm and terrifying and perfect. Be careful, she whispered. Always. He kissed her one more time, quick and fierce. Then he was gone, disappearing into the night like smoke. Naomi stood in the safe house with 2 sleeping babies and a heart that was somehow breaking and healing simultaneously. She'd come to Korea to escape her grief. To run from the pain of losing Zara. To hide from a world that had taken everything from her. Instead she'd found this. A broken man learning to be a father. Twin girls who needed her. A dangerous, complicated love that shouldn't work but somehow did. She'd found a family. And she'd be damned if she let anyone take that away. Ji-Hoon was gone for 36 hours. 36 hours of Naomi jumping at every sound, checking the security monitors obsessively, keeping the twins close even when they slept. The guards assured her everything was fine. That Mr. Kang had the situation under control. That Park Min-jae was being handled. She tried not to think too hard about what handled meant. Instead she focused on the twins. On establishing routine in this new space. On keeping them calm and safe and distracted from the violence that had shattered their world. Ji-Woo seemed to have forgotten already. Babies were resilient that way. She was her usual demanding self, screaming when hungry, laughing when entertained, napping on Naomi's chest like nothing had changed. But Ja remembered. Naomi could see it in the way the quieter twins startled at loud noises. The way she clung when held. The way her dark eyes tracked every movement with unusual wariness for a 6-month-old. I know, baby girl, Naomi whispered, rocking Jia in the safe house nursery. I know you're scared. But your daddy is going to make sure nothing bad ever happens to you again. I promise. The baby made a small sound, her tiny fist curling into Naomi's shirt. And I promise too, Naomi continued, her voice fierce with maternal protectiveness that had nothing to do with biology and everything to do with love. I'm not going to let anyone hurt you. Either of you. You're mine now, do you understand? Mine to protect. Mine to love. And I'm not going anywhere. It was true, she realized. Somewhere in the past few weeks, these babies had stopped being just a job. Had stopped being a way to remember what it felt like to mother without the pain of loss. They'd become hers. Her daughters in every way that mattered. And Ji-Hoon. God, Ji-Hoon had become something she didn't have words for yet. Partner felt too small. Lover felt incomplete. Home felt dangerous to hope for. But it was all of those things. All of them and more. The sound of a car approaching made Naomi's head snap up. She checked the security monitor. The guards were standing down. Whoever was arriving was expected. Ji-Hoon. She settled Jia in her crib next to a sleeping Ji-Woo, then went to the door just as it opened. Ji-Hoon looked like death and victory combined. His suit was ruined, torn, blood-stained, expensive fabric destroyed beyond repair. His face was bruised, a cut above his eyebrow that had been recently stitched. His knuckles were wrapped in bandages. But he was alive. Whole. And the look in his eyes when he saw her was so intense it stole her breath. It's done, he said quietly. Park is dead. His entire organization is scattered. The threat is neutralized. Naomi should have asked questions. Should have wanted details. Should have cared about the violence that had surely been required to accomplish this. Instead, she crossed the room and threw her arms around him, holding tight despite the blood and the bruises and the evidence of terrible things done in the name of protection. You came back, she whispered against his chest. I promised I would. His arms came around her, strong and sure and safe. I'll always come back to you. They stood like that for a long moment. Two people who'd survived their own separate hells finding comfort in shared embrace. The twins. Ji-Hoon asked finally. Sleeping. They're okay. Scared but okay. He pulled back, cupping her face in his hands. His thumbs stroked her cheekbones, the touch gentle despite the violence those same hands had committed hours ago. I need a shower, he said. Then I need to hold my daughters. And then, his voice dropped, intimate and promising. Then we need to have that conversation. About what this is. What we want it to be. Okay, Naomi breathed. He kissed her forehead, her nose, her lips. Soft and reverent and full of everything he wasn't saying yet. Thank you, he murmured. For what? For making me want to come home. For giving me a reason to survive this. For loving my daughters the way their mother would have. He paused, his eyes searching hers. For seeing me, all of me, the violence and the grief and the broken pieces, and choosing to stay anyway. Ji-Hoon. I'm in love with you. The confession was quiet but certain. I know it's too soon. I know we're both still healing. I know there are 1,000 practical reasons why this is complicated. But I need you to know that what I feel for you, it's real. It's not grief or loneliness or desperation. It's love. Naomi's eyes filled with tears. I love you too. The smile that broke across his face was transformative. Made him look young and hopeful and almost fragile in his joy. Yeah. She laughed through her tears. I came to Korea to run from feeling anything ever again. And instead I found you. Found them. Found a reason to live instead of just survive. He kissed her again, deeper this time, his hands tangling in her hair. The kiss tasted like promise and future and the possibility of happiness neither of them had thought they'd ever find. When they broke apart, both were smiling. Shower, Ji-Hoon said reluctantly. Then family time. Then conversation about how we make this work long term. I like that plan. He started toward the bathroom, then paused. Turn back. Naomi? Move in with us. Officially. Not as the night nurse. As. He hesitated, searching for the right words. As part of this family. As the twins' second mother. As my partner in building the life Seo-yeon wanted for them. For us. Naomi's heart was so full she thought it might burst. Yes. Just like that. Just like that. She crossed to him, taking his bruised hands in hers. I already belong to you. All three of you. Might as well make it official. The look he gave her was full of love and relief and fierce possessiveness. You're mine then. You and the twins. Mine to protect. Mine to love. Mine to build a future with. Yours, Naomi agreed. And you're ours. 3 months later, the safe house had become home. Not temporarily. Not just a hiding place. But a real, permanent home where Ji-Hoon had moved their entire life, deciding that the city, with its memories of Seo-yeon and its constant dangers, was no place to raise his daughters. The penthouse was maintained for business purposes. Ji-Hoon still commuted into Seoul several times a week, handling the increasingly legitimate operations he was transforming his empire into. But every night he came back to the mountains, to the traditional house surrounded by forest, to Naomi and the twins, to his family. The changes in him were remarkable. The cold, grief-stricken man Naomi had met 6 months ago had been replaced by someone warmer. Someone who laughed. Someone who played with his daughters on the living room floor and didn't flinch every time he looked at them. Someone who was learning to live again. Therne, Jia babbled from her high chair, her tiny voice mangling the Korean but getting close enough that Ji-Hoon's face lit up with pride. That's right, little one. 사랑해. He glanced at Naomi with a smile. She's learning faster than you did. Excuse me, she has a better teacher. Naomi stuck her tongue out at him playfully. I had someone who kept getting distracted by kissing me instead of actual instruction. Can you blame me? Ji-Hoon moved around the table, dropping a kiss on her head as he passed. You're very distracting. Ji-Woo shrieked, demanding equal attention. Ji-Hoon laughed and scooped her up, spinning her in a circle that made the baby giggle uncontrollably. Naomi watched them with a full heart. Her family. So different from what she'd once had with Zara and Marcus, but no less real. No less precious. She still missed her daughter. Probably would for the rest of her life. But the grief had softened, transformed from a sharp agony into something gentler. A sweet ache that reminded her of how much she'd loved, how much she was capable of loving again. Zara would have liked the twins, she thought. Would have been a protective big sister, teaching them mischief and defending them against playground bullies. The thought made her smile instead of cry. Progress. What are you thinking about? Ji-Hoon asked, settling Ji-woo back in her high chair. Zara, Naomi said honestly. How she would have loved being a big sister. Ji-Hoon's expression softened. He crossed to her, pulling her into his arms. She'd be proud of you. Of how you survived losing her. Of how you're loving these babies while still honoring her memory. You think. I know. He kissed her temple. Just like Seo-yeon would be proud of me for finally being the father she believed I could be. They stood like that for a moment, wrapped in each other, honoring the loves they'd lost while building something new. I have something for you, Ji-Hoon said, eventually pulling back. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Naomi's breath caught. Ji-Hoon. It's not what you think. Not yet anyway. He opened the box, revealing a delicate necklace. The pendant was Korean script, the twins' names intertwined with Naomi's. I had it made, so you'd always carry them with you. So they'd know they're yours. Tears spilled down Naomi's cheeks. It's perfect. He fastened it around her neck, his fingers lingering on her skin. You're perfect. For them. For me. For this life we're building. I'm really not. She turned in his arms to face him. I'm messy and broken and still figuring out how to exist in this world. But I love you. And I love them. And I'm trying to be enough. You're more than enough. Ji-Hoon's hands framed her face. You're everything. He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. The kind of kiss that spoke of futures and forevers and the possibility that sometimes, even after the worst losses, you could find your way back to happiness. When they broke apart, Jia was watching them with serious eyes. The quieter twin who studied everything, learning, processing, understanding more than a 9-month-old should. What do you think, Jia? Naomi asked, moving to pick up the baby. Should I keep your daddy? Jia grabbed Naomi's face with both hands and made a happy sound. It wasn't quite a word yet, but the meaning was clear. Yes. Keep him. This is good. This is family. Do not to be left out, started babbling loudly. Demanding to be part of this moment. Always the bold one. Always needing to be at the center of everything. Ji-Hoon scooped her up and suddenly they were all together. The four of them in a circle of arms and love and hard-won peace. I want to make this official, Ji-Hoon said quietly. Not right now. Not until you're ready. But eventually, when we're both sure, when the time is right, I want to marry you. Want to give the twins the family structure Seo-yeon dreamed of. Want to build something permanent with you. Naomi's heart was so full she could barely speak. I want that too. Yeah. She kissed him. But let's take our time. Let's enjoy this phase. Let's just be a family for a while before we make it legally official. I can do that. He rested his forehead against hers. As long as I get to keep you. You're stuck with me, Naomi promised. All of you. For as long as you'll have me. Forever then. Ji-Hoon's smile was soft and genuine and completely unguarded. I'll have you forever. 6 months later. The cemetery in Atlanta was peaceful. Shaded by old oak trees. Maintained with care. Rows of headstones marking lives lived and lost. Naomi stood in front of a small grave marker. Pink granite engraved with a butterfly and 4 devastating words. Zara Wells. Beloved daughter. Gone too soon. She wasn't alone. Ji-Hoon stood beside her, holding Ji-woo. One of his hands rested gently on Naomi's lower back. Grounding. Supportive. Present. And in Naomi's arms, Jia watched everything with those serious dark eyes, her tiny hand curled around the flowers they'd brought. Hi, baby girl, Naomi whispered, her voice thick with tears. I brought some people to meet you. The wind rustled through the trees, warm and gentle despite the fall chill. This is Ji-Hoon. He's someone very special. Someone I love very much. Someone who makes me laugh and takes care of me and reminds me every day that it's okay to be happy again. She glanced at Ji-Hoon, who was watching her with eyes full of understanding. I think you'd like him. He's patient and kind and gives the best hugs. Ji-Hoon's arm tightened around her waist. And these are your sisters, Naomi continued, her voice breaking. Jia and Ji-woo. They're 9 months old now. Growing so fast. Learning new things every day. They're beautiful and brilliant and so loved. She kissed Jia's head. I wish you could have met them. Wish you could have taught them all the things big sisters teach. But I think maybe you sent them to me. Sent me to them. Because I needed them and they needed me and somehow we all found each other. The tears were flowing freely now. Grief and love and gratitude all mixed together in a way that didn't hurt quite as sharply as it once had. I'm going to tell them about you, Naomi promised. When they're older. Going to show them your pictures. Tell them about their big sister who loved butterflies and laughing and strawberry ice cream. Who was brave even when she was scared. Who made every day brighter just by existing. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I'm going to make sure they know you, sweet girl. Know that they have a piece of heaven watching over them. Ji-Hoon set down Ji-woo carefully, then pulled Naomi into his free arm, creating a circle around her. Around all of them. A family united in love and loss and the determination to honor what came before while building what came next. Thank you, he murmured against Naomi's hair. For bringing me here. For sharing this with me. For trusting me with your grief and your love and your precious daughter's memory. Thank you for coming, Naomi whispered back. For understanding why I needed to do this. Why I needed them to meet her. They stood there for a long time. Long enough for Ji-woo to get fussy and Jia to fall asleep against Naomi's chest. Long enough for Naomi to say all the things she needed to say. All the I love yous and I miss yous and thank yous. Long enough to feel peace settle into her bones. Finally, Naomi kissed her fingers and pressed them to Zara's name on the headstone. I'll come back, she promised. Every year. I'll bring them and we'll tell you about our lives and you'll always be part of this family. Okay. The wind picked up, rustling the oak leaves in what almost sounded like agreement. As they walked back to the car, Ji-Hoon took her hand. You okay? Yeah. And surprisingly she meant it. It still hurts. Probably always will. But it's a good hurt now. The kind that reminds me I was blessed to love her. That she made me who I am. That losing her led me to you and the twins and this whole beautiful complicated life. She'd be proud of you, Ji-Hoon said. Of the mother you are to our daughters. Of the partner you are to me. Of the way you survived the unsurvivable and came out the other side still capable of love. Our daughters, Naomi repeated, testing the words. Loving how they sounded. I like that. Good. Because I filed the adoption papers yesterday. He said it casually like he wasn't completely rearranging her world. If you agree, both twins will legally be yours within 6 months. Not as their nanny or nurse but as their mother. Equal custody. Equal rights. Equal everything. Naomi stopped walking. Stared at him with tears streaming down her face. You what? They're already yours in every way that matters, Ji-Hoon said gently. I'm just making the law catch up with reality. So when I ask you to marry me, and I will ask probably sooner than I should, you won't just be getting me. You'll be getting the whole package. Legal parent. Equal partner. Family. Ji-Hoon, she couldn't speak past the emotion clogging her throat. Is that okay? For the first time he looked uncertain. Vulnerable. I should have asked first. But I wanted to surprise you and I thought. She kissed him. Hard and desperate and full of every feeling she didn't have words for. When she pulled back she was laughing and crying simultaneously. It's more than okay, she managed. It's perfect. They're perfect. You're perfect. This whole impossible beautiful life is perfect. His smile could have lit up the entire cemetery. So that's a yes? That's the biggest yes I've ever given in my life. They loaded the twins into their car seats. A rental since they'd flown in from Korea just for this visit. As Ji-Hoon drove them back toward the hotel, Naomi looked out at the Atlanta streets she'd once called home. It didn't feel like home anymore. Home was a traditional house in the Korean mountains. Home was morning coffee with a man who'd learned to love again. Home was 2 baby girls who called her mama in Korean and English both. Home was the family she'd built from the ashes of the one she'd lost. Home was Ji-Hoon's hand in hers, warm and strong and sure. Home was knowing that even after the worst loss imaginable, even after grief had tried to destroy her completely, she'd survived. Had found her way back to living instead of just existing. Had found her way to love. What are you thinking about? Ji-Hoon asked, glancing at her from the driver's seat. Naomi looked at him. At the man who'd been as broken as she was. Who'd hidden in his study to avoid his daughters because loving them hurt too much. Who'd survived his own impossible loss and found the strength to try again. I'm thinking about how lucky I am, she said honestly. How 6 months ago I was the woman crying in your nursery at 3 a.m., completely shattered, barely holding on. And now I'm the woman who gets to wake up next to you every morning. Who gets to watch our daughters grow. Who gets to build a future I never thought I'd have again. I'm the lucky one, Ji-Hoon said quietly. You gave me back my daughters. Gave me a reason to live instead of just survive. Showed me that it's possible to honor the past while building something new. We gave each other that, Naomi corrected. We healed together. Yeah. His hand tightened on hers. We did. In the back seat, both twins were asleep. Jia with her serious face finally relaxed. Jiwoo with her mouth slightly open, already snoring softly despite being only 9 months old. Perfect. Both of them absolutely perfect. Naomi's phone buzzed. A text from her sister in Boston, the one she'd finally reached out to last month. The one who'd cried when Naomi told her about Ji-Hoon and the twins. Who'd promised to visit Korea soon to meet this new family. Thinking about you today. Know you're visiting Zara. Sending love. Can't wait to meet Ji-Hoon and the girls next month. So proud of you, sis. Naomi typed back quickly. Thank you. Love you too. Can't wait for you to meet them. Your sister? Ji-Hoon asked. Yeah. She's excited to visit. Good. I want to meet the family you came from. Want them to know the family you've built with us. Family. The word had taken on so many different meanings in Naomi's life. Blood family. Chosen family. Lost family. Found family. All of it mattered. All of it shaped who she was. But this, Ji-Hoon and the twins and the life they were building together. This was the family she'd get to keep. The family she'd get to watch grow. The family that proved you could survive the unsurvivable and still find your way back to happiness. I love you, she said. Not for the first time. Wouldn't be the last. But it needed to be said anyway. I love you too, Ji-Hoon replied. All of you. Now and always. And as they drove through Atlanta's streets toward the airport, toward the flight home to Korea, toward the life waiting for them in the mountains, Naomi felt something settle into place. Something that had been broken for so long finally beginning to heal. He would always miss Zara. Would always carry that grief. But she could carry it alongside love for Ji-Hoon and the twins. Could honor her daughter's memory while building a future with her new family. Could survive and live and love all at once. The nursery door had been unlocked that night 3 months ago. The crying had brought Ji-Hoon running with a gun and fear. And what he'd found, what they'd both found, was the beginning of something neither had been looking for but both desperately needed. Second chance. A new family. A future built from broken pieces that somehow fit together perfectly. And as the plane lifted off hours later, carrying them home to Korea, Naomi looked at Ji-Hoon sleeping beside her with Jia on his chest, at Jiwoo asleep in her own arms and thought, this is what surviving looks like. This is what healing looks like. This is what love looks like after loss. And it's beautiful. And that's where we'll leave Naomi, Ji-Hoon and their beautiful family. 2 broken souls who found each other in the darkest moment and built something extraordinary from the ashes of their grief. If this story touched your heart, if you felt every moment of their journey from pain to healing, from survival to love, then please, hit that like button right now. Your support means everything and helps us bring you more stories like this. Stories about powerful men brought to their knees by love. About humble women who reveal unexpected strength. About families built not just from blood, but from choice, devotion, and fierce protection. And if you're not already subscribed, what are you waiting for? Click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss when we drop a new story. We're building a community here. A family of people who believe in second chances, in love after loss, in the kind of romance that transforms lives. Drop a comment below and tell me, what was your favorite moment? Was it when Ji-Hoon first found Naomi crying in the nursery? When he confessed his love? When he made her the twins' legal mother? Or was it that final scene where we see them thriving as a family? I want to know what made your heart race, what made you cry, what made you believe in their love. And here's something special. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Seoul, Atlanta, London, Sao Paulo, Tokyo. Our community spans the globe and I love seeing how these stories connect us all across borders and time zones. If you have a friend who loves Korean romance, who believes in protective mafia bosses and strong, resilient women, who needs a story about healing and second chances, share this video with them. Let's spread this story to everyone who needs to hear it. Before you go, let me ask you this. What kind of story do you want to see next? Another Korean mafia boss protecting his woman? A bodyguard romance? Forbidden love story? Drop your requests in the comments and I'll make sure to deliver exactly what you're craving. Remember, my loves, grief doesn't disqualify you from happiness. Loss doesn't mean you can't love again. And sometimes the most broken people create the most beautiful families when they finally find each other. Until next time, keep believing in love, keep believing in second chances, and keep believing that even in your darkest 3 a.m. moment, someone might be about to walk through that door and change your entire life. This is your storyteller signing off. I'll see you in the next one.